something I will probably deal with for the rest of my life is saying goodbye to the little me because of whatever griefs that have happened in my life. So the fight is to peel back all those layers to get to that. At an early stage in my Bollywood career, that has also cost me movies because I used to be like script. And वहाँ से आवाज आती थी तुम्हारी हिम्मत कैसे हुई स्क्रिप्ट नहीं मांग सकते इनसे. I play with a lot of rhythm and breath. It's in everything, literally everything. There are 9 basic emotions that you play with. The rest of humanity and life and everything is a permutation and combination of those 9 emotions. It's your final jump, and you have to make the longest you can every time I'm preparing a part. And that jump is as far away from me. I suppose I'm very confidently saying this to you right now, but I'm full of screw-ups. She's hilarious. She's funny. I was just in a dubbing studio right now, and she knows I'm dubbing. She knows I'm in a studio. So she decides to send a voice note. 3-second voice note. Now, 3-second voice notes, you cannot quickly put to your ear and listen. They will spill out. So the studio of like 15 people have just cracked up. And yeah.
Welcome to Take a Pause with me, Varun and Ali.
So the first question is always the one I think about the most. I'm like, okay, how do we start a conversation? And
Oh man.
I thought with you, I'd start off by asking you, saying, how were you as a kid?
Sorry, I'm trying to sift through all the trauma of the childhood and give you something meaningful and nice. No, I'm kidding. I was very sporty. I loved being outdoors. So I would always invariably be a visibly very dirty kid. So that was one reason for a lot of scream fests.
You were the kid in the surf ad.
हाँ, before surf.
Yeah.
जो pre दिखाते हैं.
Yeah.
Before that thing comes and swipes across the screen and makes you white. Yeah, I was all right. I was okay.
No, I asked about how you were as a kid because what I've actually found is that most of the things that we are as we kind of grow older is there are so many of those threads that come from things we enjoyed doing as a kid.
Yeah.
Stuff that was around us, stuff that influenced us. And whenever I've seen you on screen, I've always seen as this person, like there is a certain, I call it silent intensity to how you act. I always wondered where that kind of stems from. Are there specific things you tap into for that?
I don't know. Maybe unknowingly. I suppose. Yeah, it has to be because when it comes to craft, I don't think I like to dive into that. I think I play with a lot of rhythm and breath. At least I like to think so. But again, there's always a part of you in it. But at the same time, like the parts that I like playing I try to create distance between them and me as much as I can. That's a large effort. On the contrary to the holding on to those threads, I'm desperate to sort of, like a long jump.
Yeah.
It's your final jump, and you have to make the longest you can every time I'm preparing a part. And that jump is as far away from me.
And that's interesting because you often hear about this fact that if you're kind of getting into character, you're going to go deep into it and pull something out of yourself. But the distance is an interesting one.
Because when you land, now that we're talking about a pit and long jump, we've gone to athletics.
Yeah.
The first gaze is when you've landed and you always look back, and that's when you see how far you are. And I like to have that gaze on me from the other end, rather than being where I am, knowing me as I am, as I have lived my life. That to me is far more humbling and far more intuitive, I think. So it's not to say that I don't tap into myself. Maybe a part of me does. But I can only do that while I'm away from me. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
It does actually, because it's I've always been fascinated about the process of artists, right? It's one of those things that's
We love
fascinated me.
intellectualizing our processes
Yeah.
and our lives
Uh,
and the vanity that we are constantly, we're gifted with. But if I were to not do that, uh, it's pure empathy and compassion. It has to be, and that's why uh, we are just invariably very, very sensitive, vulnerable, and people that get hurt.
you mentioned the word empathy, right? Is that because I'm gathering that oftentimes you're looking at a character, you're looking at a certain thing, and you're like, you need to have almost a relationship with that character. Do you believe you need to empathize with the character, but also you kind of figure how they would think? And
No, I mean, who's they?
the character and
But then
versus
who's the
you.
character? The character is somebody I'm trying to almost sow into, the world that has already been created. I think because of the glorification of that notion, we end up ignoring what is on text. In fact, sometimes totally ignoring the text. Sometimes a large part of those are already there in punctuations, in the middle of those texts, in costumes that are thought of and dreamt of or created out of scratch, for this person to actually exist or have existed. So I find that really fascinating. 70-80% of my character building, if I call it that, or prep, is sitting with my costume department. I thoroughly enjoy knowing and being stitched into that. I think it's very fascinating. Yeah.
When did you first realize you wanted to act?
Um, so so in the real world,
Real
there's
world.
okay.
Real
There's
world.
yeah.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
real world,
Yeah.
the acting happened because and this is, I think, somewhere I've spoken about this. It's probably in the news. I broke my arm.
Hmm.
So this is where consciously I have realized that, or other world has shifted. I was a basketball player. I was heavily into sports, hockey, basketball, hockey, and then a sprinkle of all other, short put and all that, because I was in a boarding school, and that's what you do, like season sports. Uh, and then suddenly nothing. And my friend is like, यार तुम्हें अंग्रेजी ठीक ठाक है, वो शेक्सपियर का प्ले हो रहा है, तुम जाके ऑडिशन करो. And of course, it was a raging affair in school that time, because one all boys school and this family has come and this girl is there and blah blah blah, whatever happened after that. But yeah, I started stage from there, and I found a similar discipline that I find in sport in acting. I still can't put a pin on it. So that has carried on since then. Of course, theatre happened. I still went on to do my sciences. I did my economics, did college in Xavier's here, and my first film happened in my second year. But now, like when I look back, I think it began from creating scenes at home, just to make my folks laugh, especially my mother, and her constant training, of me to. She used to take me every end of the week. It was like a ritual, going to the movies, watching something cool and classics. And then you look further back and you realize, like, and this I have spoken about somewhere, that the first what do you call it? The first story that I remember is a bedtime story that I was told. But it was a story about an Italian family living in New York, and it was told to me in two parts. And of course, lo and behold, I grow up and I watch The Godfather, and I realize this is the Godfather story that I've been living with all my life. And so I go back to my mom and I'm like, excuse me. She said, you seem to enjoy it. It was one of my favorite films. So maine suna di. I said, okay, great. Yeah.
That's such a fabulous bedtime story to tell. Like, damn time.
It's
Just thinking about
horrible. Listen. No, it was great. It was great. It was told beautifully, I think, as far as I can remember. But yeah, those were my first acts of, I suppose. desperate acts at the time.
And then the long winding paths to um, the first couple of films. And would you call it, you think there was a point when you said, okay, I'm finally figuring what my route is as an actor, like the direction I want this to go?
No, man.
No?
I'm so desperate to find that. I think I'm really hungry as an actor to find the right people who can push me. I think I've only had like maybe two instances in my entire career where I found directors who've pushed me out of my comfort zone, and in doing so, uh, have extracted something nice, something workable. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about any one of those?
I mean, well, Stephen Frears, for one. There's a movie called Victoria and Abdul I did with him. Uh, and there were scenes that, and I think every actor does that, right? Like they go in knowing or having an idea, right? You read a scene, you have a basic like blueprint in your head. And then you play with it. You play with your actor, you talk, you sort it out. But then comes along once in a while, there's a director who choreographs it a certain way, and it's just I couldn't imagine a couple of those scenes that were played out a certain way. So that was really fascinating, to be able to navigate through that. Like Vishalji did that for me in Khufia, a film I've done recently. I thought it was phenomenal. When your own brain starts to churn and you're almost mathematically deciphering, and it's fun.
Yeah.
And it could be total like what comes out could be like
Yeah.
wrong. Or I don't know, maybe in some other version. But yeah, I'm still navigating
figuring it
that. Yeah.
But do you feel like over time you also realize what you enjoy the most in terms of what you do?
I enjoy the playfulness of it. I get to be a kid all over again every single time I'm in front of the camera. Like it's like a spark. It's like you're thrown in Wonderland, and then everything is right, or can be right. Uh, I'm bringing people to existence. This has not happened ever in the history of this planet. What is about to happen right now? I think there's so much beauty in that. There's some godliness about it. I mean, for lack of a better word. Yeah. Does that make sense? I don't know.
No, it does, because I feel that's the one part which I feel most people don't understand, is that you are not necessarily just playing a role. You are bringing someone to life,
Yeah.
who did not exist, who's a
Yeah.
figment of multiple people's imagination, and a mixture, right? Someone's written it, and then someone's written some form of dialogue additions there, and then someone's visualizing it, and someone's
Yeah.
directing it, and you're acting it. And so,
And it's such a privileged thing. Like I think De Niro put it really beautifully, that we get to play so many parts without having to carry the baggage of these so many individuals. You know, yeah.
there was this point, and as I've followed your career from the outside, is that where you started to do all these international projects, right? And suddenly saw you playing such diverse kind of roles, and in some form seeing you really evolve as well as an artist, right? Have you seen some aspects of that really have given you newer, almost like tools to use as an actor, like as an artist?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, because we always learn, right? We're always trying to learn. And I think as long as I'm reinventing in life, not just on camera, and evolving, I think I'll constantly, I'll almost have a 360 gaze of myself from that pit, that we were talking about. And then once in a while, like comes along one scene in maybe, I don't know, 1 out of 10, where you sometimes have that out of body experience where you're just standing right next to the camera, looking at yourself, looking at every single like twitch on your face, because this is your canvas, and you're managing to, almost like with your, if you could do it with your fingers, you're
Yeah.
molding your face
Yeah.
in perfect sync with the tempo of the room or the scene, and just, it's like playing jazz, or yeah, any sort of musical, I don't know, operatic interlude.
Do you feel that's also kind of what prompted you to kind of take the plunge, just saying, okay, also to produce certain kinds of stories, certain kinds of pieces, because they need to be played for that song to be heard. Just picking off what you just said.
What, like?
As in, these stories need to be told, and as you look at each piece of content, each tool that kind of comes in, like, okay, this is something that I really want told, and the only way to sometimes kind of really get into that is then, oh, let me just kind of help get it made.
Oh yeah. Like the first time I did that was, I was in the loo, and I thought of something, and I was like, ended up sitting there for an hour on my notes, and I penned this short film, and I thought this was it was a brilliant idea. It had to be told, and so I said, well, I have to produce it. I don't have the money, but I tried to sort of bring in the right team. I shot it. And it's lying in the can is lying in my cupboard till date. It's been 7 years, 6 years, and I didn't have the heart to edit it, but it's there because in my head it got executed. So that could be one way of producing things.
Yeah.
I suppose that's when I learned that the second step to that coming to fruition of any kind is to be able to learn how to share what you create. I didn't want to share that. And there was nothing personal or anything. I thought it was just not up to mark. But again, I would never know because I never edited it. So I'm actually looking for editors who want to edit and who, want to experiment with something really cool. But yeah, does that answer some of it? No, I mean,
does.
yeah, I know what you mean. Like, of course, there are topics where we've. That's probably one of the reasons why Richa and me created this production house, because we wanna create a medium, a place where artists and creators can come through us, work with us, evolve with us. We might create something together, or you move on. As long as we're churning, we're moving. Like, we took baby steps into creating this first film that we have. It had to be the story, right? That has to get you. And I think that's what I'm a big believer of. Yeah. At an early stage in my Bollywood career, that has also cost me movies because I used to be like, script. And वहाँ से आवाज आती थी कि स्क्रिप्ट क्यों मांग रहे हो? तुम्हारी हिम्मत कैसे हुई? स्क्रिप्ट नहीं मांग सकते इनसे. I said, okay.
And then you're like, but how do I know what I'm going to be doing? And then
वो हो जाएगा. हाँ, तो बैनर है. बैनर के नीचे खड़े हो, पकड़े रहो उसे. So, no, but that was my being very naive at the time. I don't, yeah, it's fine. But I'm also kind of tired of fixing things. Like, I don't want to be on a set, fix things, Like, get your act together, make a film. And as a producer, I learned that, like, I also don't want to create an environment where, because I know I've been in smaller films where somebody would say, they'll come to you and say, sorry, listen, we don't have money. We can't. So, but if you don't have the money, don't make it. Don't make it. Write it. Let it exist. Somebody will come and make it. But if it's killing your vision, and if somebody's not getting food to eat, then
yeah.
I'm going on a different tangent.
No.
So yeah, I drift.
No. Drifting is one of the beauties of podcasting, is that you can the drift is part of the whole vibe of things. And
Yeah.
do you look at and I think this is a track I wanted to kind of ask you, is that I was running through your Instagram, as you do with guests before they come on, and I do that, and I was like, I noticed occasionally there were pieces where you talk about where your headspace is, and occasionally you do also talk about yoga and
Do I?
fitness, and it popped up. So I went through a bit of a rabbit hole. I'm like, let me just see if there's something which I always found that you can kind of find threads of people's life by just some aspects of what they share.
Interesting.
So it might sound like a random question, but what's your relationship with your own mental health like?
So a lot of the stuff that I write, and it's it's almost borderline stupid, or at least comes off. And I think it's because I've been trying to learn how to observe my thoughts. Almost just be a witness to it, and try not to judge it. I try not to judge it, and so there's a vocabulary to it, or at least I try to force a vocabulary to it. Sometimes I put it out there, sometimes I don't. Sorry. And I think, but if we're going on the mental health topic, then I think it has a lot of facets. Like I think I know that it has a lot to do with my fitness, my food, anybody's food. Like half the things can be cured with food. The rest is, you know, traumas and grief and glitches that you have ignored in your life and pent up stuff. Those sometimes you need people to talk to. We are social animals, so until unless you find it, I mean, if you find yourself talking to yourself, then there's a problem. But we jump to labeling things. And I spoke about this earlier somewhere. That's the scary part. That somebody will come along and say, "Hey, you have ADHD. Hey, you have, you're bipolar, or you're this, or you're, this runs in the family. So, you should be careful." And that is far more detrimental than, yeah.
Yeah, because that tends to make you think that that's what you are.
Yeah, because now there's always material,
Yeah.
supporting it.
And
There's
you'll always find evidence for anything you should.
everything. Whatever, it's an opinionated world, right? हम मतलब सब लोग अपने आप को ढूंढने जाते हैं बाहर ट्विटर पे या जहाँ पे भी, तो उसमें you'll always find your faction, and that's not the community I'm talking about, or rather the social animal that we are. Like for instance, I haven't found a great therapist. So because that was the thing at one point. Find somebody you can talk to, because these people are wizards. So, तो मैं तो गलती से कहीं पहुंच गया था, वहाँ उसने कुछ प्रिस्क्राइब कर दिया. तो I ran. I said, this is wrong. This is like, some serious stuff that you're just rolling out for people. I think the person didn't expect me to be mildly read up on this side of the world.
Yeah.
And pharma is like taking us down in a big way. So, yeah. But I try to keep my sanity. But I mean, I find outlets in
No,
movies.
because what you said is super relevant, right? Like for the longest part of my life, I was told that I might have ADHD because I have an attention thing, and I kept saying I have ADHD, and at some point of time, someone said you not just want to go to someone who's certified and get checked up, and I thankfully found someone, and she's fabulous. Is still my therapist, and
Yeah.
she said you don't have it. You just seem to be calling yourself that.
Yeah. There's also the new induced ADHD, right? Because of phones. And I found myself, I think, in that bracket. Actually, a friend of mine, Geetika, she made me randomly aware. Randomly chatting on Insta only. And she's like, no, you should see this. This could be it. And I said, shoot, you're right. Like, I'm addicted.
Yeah,
And
you get that itch.
yeah, and I'm addicted because I suppose the longest running excuse was, but my nature of work is मेरे को मेल पढ़ना होता है, मेरे को पोस्ट करना होता है, या news आती है, and it's BS. Like you can fix it. you know. So I'm trying. I'm still grappling with it.
There's this person I know who's a coach and worked closely with her, and she spoke about what you just said. How we say that, we need to do this. करना पड़ेगा.
हाँ.
तो करना है. And she said, she gave a clarity exercise. She said, when someone says that I need to do this, it's almost like a guilt thing, right? No, I need to do this, or I have to do this is almost like when I've been forced. It's stress. So eventually, as human beings, you're going to say, I want to do it, or I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's when you know you have clarity. I thought that's such a simple, but
Dude, but that's hard. It's not
very hard.
simple.
Very hard.
I mean, I suppose
Simple
that's,
explanation, but tougher to do.
Yeah, those are like, I mean, I suppose it's close to the entire gamut of affirmations, right?
Yeah.
Like the right words that you use and the right messages and signals that you send to your brains and everything. I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would suggest like start by writing what you need to do on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
I think that really is starting to help me a lot because it's real, it's out there, you're writing it and you go one by one through the day, not just basic like sentences or words.
Yeah.
My God, we're slaves to these things.
Yes, we are.
Look
yes,
at
we
me
are.
wearing this jacket, chilling, coffee, but I'm basically we're slaves to like yeah.
So someone actually said this recently. I happened to see it on Twitter. I think it's super relevant to what you said. Is that someone said, "Okay, do you think because of everything that's happening with technology that eventually they will be telling us what we should be doing?" And someone said, "Don't you realize technology all day is because what we do is basis an algorithm." And the algorithm machine is telling you what to do, and you're doing what it's. So he's like, imagine how most of the world is dancing on camera for a machine, and so we're already there.
Yeah. But we're playing ball.
Yeah,
We're also playing ball.
We're also enjoying it somehow.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you get sucked into it, but we are. I'm lifting my finger to,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's, yeah.
And I went down this thread also because I feel that there is something to how we as human beings looked at art, looked at artists, versus how this entire space is perceived now, is because there's so much more of it, but there still doesn't seem to be enough of it.
You mean the
Because
right?
you're constantly spending more time looking for things to watch and things to do,
Yeah.
but there's so much more being created all the time.
Because that's what, I think that's the business, right? To be able to have so many choices. कि, हमें इतना desire पे चल रहा है ना सब कुछ. I think everything in the world works on I have something you don't. उसी पे है ना पूरा फंडा वही है.
Correct.
उसकी फिल्म है I have something you don't, nuclear powers, I have something you don't, politics, blah blah blah, everything. So that's it. As long as you can keep that going, yeah, it's mind blowing.
Do you think that changes how relationships work now? Like, because of how we function online, does that change relationships when you're actually in person?
Yeah, I suppose so. Don't you?
I'm finding more and more that people are finding it easier to send a message than to say what they want to say in person.
Because we facilitated that.
Yeah.
Of course. That's obvious. I mean, it's going to be short-lived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you say it's short-lived?
Well, because pleasures are short-lived, right? I mean, and so it's harder. It's harder to commit to the sanctity of it all, to actually be responsible enough. It's easy to send a text and say, "Yaar, kuch aa gaya. I can't make it." Back then you would go back home, then make a call,
Yeah.
and actually wait till that person has reached home, make a call, hoping that person picks up and not some other person in the same house, and then convey that, "Hey, listen, I got sick. I couldn't make it." And by then damage is done. So I don't know, but I suppose this is far more damaging because in the long run, then that's how it's also you don't want to face it, right?
And you don't have the space to really think about things because
Yeah.
you're going from like thing to thing to thing to thing
Yeah.
to thing.
See, so that's what acting does to me. It helps me slow down time. Like when I'm in front of a camera, that's what I can do. That's when you have like truly, I like to think, focused access to time.
At the start, you used a term. You said rhythm and breath, and that's kind of like been stuck in my head through this period. I'm like, I know. Explain what you mean by rhythm and breath.
It's in everything. Literally everything. You know, when and naturally, like, I remember Vinay told me this. There's, you know, when mother is with a child, and you know they're crying or they're off. Naturally, a mother taps the kid in a 4 beat.
Yeah.
Yeah, we breathe on 72 beats per minute. So even our breathing, and if you ever do this in your free time, you take in your breath and you take it out. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and you hold it. And you hold it, and you'll be able to hold it. Now, you take it in and you take it out and you hold it just after 2. You'll find it harder to hold it after 2. Anybody can do it whenever in your free time.
Because you haven't held enough in.
No, no.
Because you
Because
did for the first time.
naturally,
Because you did for the first time.
it's always a 4 beat. On a 4 beat, after the 4, you naturally will be able to. You don't have to hold it in. You could start your cycle the other way around, and breath could be coming out.
Yeah.
But both ways you'll be able to hold it. We're naturally built like that. You know, you're nodding right now. You're in my rhythm.
Yeah.
Right. That's why they say when you want people to agree to you, you make them walk. Sorry, pardon my.
No.
Because without knowing, like they're matching your pace, so they're bound to be more agreeable to you. Of course, there's a whole science to that, but essentially, it's coming out of rhythm. You know, on a film set, you know, the camera is moving. There's a scene. There's a tempo. There's a speech rhythm, and these are things that I've not dreamt of. These are things that I've methodically learned at Adi Shakti in Pondicherry. That's where I think the stuff that they're doing, I swear by. And it took me, I've been there thrice, and I think it's still not enough. So I'm constantly learning. But of course, that goes deeper because then we start using breath to channelize emotion.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are 9 basic emotions that you play with. The rest of humanity and life and everything is a permutation and combination of those 9 emotions. But if you could be aware of your breath and throw it right in the right spot, you know, your body would be in a state of that emotion. And that seems magical, but it's totally doable. And even the way your speech comes out then can be mathematically calculated, you know. Bada offbeat actor hai, they say, right? Like that, it's because it's the right punches that come on and off, you know. If we're all on a 4 beat, we're again effing boring.
Yeah.
You know. But suddenly on a half is when I gut punch you, sucker punch you. You're not going to see it coming. But I can calculate it. Yeah.
And that almost gives the, you know, it's like you've asked the audience to kind of catch on to a certain beat, and because you've held back, they feel that a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I can carry this on.
Yeah. You can,
I can throw in my words at whatever time.
Yeah.
You know.
It's so fascinating. I was just saying it, and I'm thinking in beats and breath as.
Or even when 2 people fight,
Yeah.
you know, couples fight.
Yeah.
They always find a third person to call it truce, right?
Yeah.
Because he breaks that. Because you've just gone off. So you need a third person sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. You need to almost break the pattern of the
Exactly.
cycle that kind of comes in.
Exactly. Yeah. That is hard. for us to be aware of that is very hard. Even sometimes we subconsciously were not thinking. I suppose I'm very confidently saying this to you right now, but I'm full of screw ups. I suppose I'm more aware of this when I'm in front of the camera, and even then, it's hard to keep that in mind, and then not, because it has to become muscle memory. You can't think of these things. When you're living, you're not thinking of what you're about to say. So yeah,
You said there's almost a beat to a relationship. Is there a beat to your relationship with Richa? Would you say there's a... Because as you said that, I'm thinking about, okay, I'm thinking about me
Beating in
and...
the relationship?
No, I'm thinking... I'm thinking about me and my wife, and I'm considering what is the beat of our relationship. And I was trying to
no,
track
there's
that
no
pattern.
particular beat.
No, in the sense that there's a flow, right?
Of course.
And I've noticed that, and as you said that, I had this flash of most couples that I know in my own life and have known, and it had this flash of, this is almost the pace at which they've almost flowed with each other, and you sometimes see that. You see some... I mean, I've always called it sync, but I'm guessing it's the
Yeah.
same thing. It's like how
I suppose.
does that sync kind of work, and
Yeah.
not the beating.
I
the
mean,
beat
no.
was
See, again, it's not tempos. It's not whatever. They could be working on totally different.
yeah.
Like Richa and me are. I don't think we like the same things. We have totally different choices in a lot of things, tastes, even in cuisines and stuff. But I love that. It's still not at loggerheads.
Yeah.
It's not like, our... I think maybe ideologies have to be similar. Persons don't have to be. That could be boring.
Yeah. Because if you agree on everything, but if you ideology, then it'll get boring. But if you...
Yeah, but then again, an
but at the
ideology also
foundation-
has to be
Yeah.
defined,
Yeah.
within the context that you're living in, the societies you're living in.
Yeah.
I mean, the larger, bigger effects of, I suppose, evolutionary muscle memories that stay on, from generations before you've even existed. Those you already have to break those cycles. You already have to try and break those rhythms that exist, and then by default of the last 10 years or the 5 years of whatever, or 50 years of your environment. So that too already is another... मतलब fight पे fight चल रही है. Sorry, I'm getting too indulgent.
No, I think we... I'm going to be stuck on breath and
Oh God.
rhythm now.
But
for
you
a
should
bit.
come for one of those workshops then. There's some wonderful things these guys do. I think and I keep talking about them because they're almost two divine people. Nimi, Vinay, they're running this in,
Explain how, for someone who doesn't know about them, what they do.
Oh, Adi Shakti, is a kind of, it's a workshop, about 10, 12 days. It's done for all kinds of artists, or not even artists, actually. Out of 3 workshops that I've been in, there have been people from all sorts, all walks of life. And first few days you're learning, like, what breaths we have, how you can channelize them, working with text, working with percussion instruments. In the mornings, you're learning Kalari Payattu, which is mother of all martial arts. So you're, sort of opening up your body. First 6 days, you have no clue what is happening and why it is happening the way it's happening. On the 6th, 7th day, it all comes together. And by the end of those 10 days, 12 days, you're creating a piece based on those very concepts. Not trying to use your intellect, not trying to use your education and your, whatever, your experience. Your experiences, yes, but just purely, almost, it's very carnal. For the first time, like, I think I remember my first workshop clicked me during one of those emotional things, and I realized, like, that's the first time I saw my body weep, because at the end of the day, we're all, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but we're all, cut copy paste हो रहा है ना कहीं से, our experiences,
100%.
right? You're constantly, you've seen something just yesterday, you've seen a part of it, you've seen a version of it, and somewhere along the way you build those images, and you spew them out, sometimes even in your most genuine moments. So you'll never really, how do you see yourself, right? It's like that big question, mirror में क्या मैं अपने आप को ही देखता हूँ? वो तो रिफ्लेक्शन है.
Correct.
So तो वो भी है. You can go deep and deep and deep and deep into this, but these are the few things that I latch on to because they made sense. And also, again, this is because I wasn't given a chance to study acting, or so I read up on everything, the Meisners and methods, and Stanislaus or whatever, Utahage and everything, and I think they're brilliant. But this made more sense. This is something I connected with. That's all. But a lot of people connect with other things as well, I think. Yeah.
I've just been thinking about
What? Rhythm?
the word you said, almost the carnal side of you, right? It's like almost you saw yourself in your rawest form, and also because as in our lives we always keep adding layers of things that
Yeah, which is why the fight needs to be to go back. Like something I will probably deal with for the rest of my life is is saying goodbye to the little me, because of whatever griefs that have happened in my life. I'm sure others have their own share of grief, because that is what you don't want to lose. I suppose the innocence. So the fight is to peel back all those layers to get to that, because I think I'm privileged that I've gotten to be an actor. I can be that, at whim.
and peeling back is also it's one of the toughest things to do, right? Is that if you can sit back and peel, because
I mean, it's cathartic.
also our tendency is to sweep things under the carpet and keep it
Yeah,
there.
because
and
we're
let it-
fearful.
Yeah.
Half the time during this conversation, I'm fearful. I'm fearful that I will say something that will trigger me, and I will start crying. I will get really emotional. I am. At all times, I'm aware of that. But then I'm also aware at all times about exits in a room. that's my OCD.
There's one and there's two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Outside there's 6. Yeah.
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 I asked you earlier about and maybe that didn't come off right, but I asked you about the rhythm of your relationship, and I asked you that because I've also, again, this is sense from maybe interviews I've seen, maybe, and I'm picking up from what you said, is that you need to be two people who agree at a fundamental level on something, but can be diverse in that, in the things that you enjoy and do. Do you feel that's almost the mixture that really works?
I guess. You could be totally right. Yeah. And humor. I really, I feed off that a lot. Yeah. She's hilarious. I think she's hilarious. She's funny. I was just in a dubbing studio right now, and she knows I'm dubbing. She knows I'm in a studio. So she decides to send a voice note. 3-second voice notes. Now, 3-second voice notes, you cannot quickly put to your ear and listen. They will spill out.
Yeah.
Right? Like on WhatsApp, you can do this and it'll only play in your ear. She knows it'll spill out. So, and they're just wrong. Like, the studio of like 15 people have just cracked up. And yeah.
And you need that in life. You need someone who makes you laugh. You need someone who kind of, yeah. And
बिकॉज ये सब मस्ती है. हम चाहे जितना बातें कर लें, जितनी लाइफ को अंडरस्टैंड कर लें, हम इस यहाँ बुलाए गए मस्ती के लिए, राइट? द लार्जर थिंग इज समथिंग एल्स ओनली, मतलब, एंड आई थिंक दैट इज व्हाट आई फाउंड with her. And so I maybe latch on in, sorry for sounding really stupid and maybe really like kiddish, But in this realm, I like to think humor is the one thing I want to latch on to and have a partner with and, finish it off. I mean, Thelma Lewis, it, sorry.
No,
But, yeah, like,
you can curse on this podcast.
oh,
as
you
well.
can.
You can.
No,
you
I
can.
no, I God, I hate doing that. Sorry. Good trivia. Mirzapur season 2, I did not curse even once.
Really? Oh.
Yes, and nobody noticed.
I didn't realize that.
Exactly. That was my point. Okay, anyway. So, I think we've both had very spiritual encounters on our own levels. I think she's far more evolved, but yeah, I found that with her. Sorry, you're saying.
I'm happy you said humor because we almost look at humor as. I feel that we confuse the word humor with funny, and those are not necessarily the same thing.
Oh yeah, no.
But most people think that this person's got a good sense of humor means they say एक joke सुना दो. Like that's not the equation.
It's like actors ना they say कि आप acting करते हो तो कुछ दिखाओ. तो एक मैकेनिकल इंजीनियर अंकल थे. मैंने कहा कुछ बनाओ यही बनाओ. So
Yeah, it's
anyway.
But humor is almost because there's this fabulous book called Humor Seriously. It's these two academics who teach a course on humor. I think at Harvard or Yale, one of those two.
Wow.
To the people who are in business school, because they say that you cannot function as a person in the working environment if you don't have humor.
So they teach a course on humor.
To business school students.
Oh my God, that's a little joke in itself.
Because they say that people just tend to take this so seriously that you have to have humor. How are you going to build relationships with people? They said that, and there's one line from the book, which I'll never forget, which says that people always believed that leaders needed to be looked at and almost like admired, but what you don't realize is leaders need to be understood, and the way you are understood is you actually come down to the level of everybody else and just have some sense of humor and you feel connected by that, because that's what brings everybody down. A good sense of humor kind of brings everybody onto the same plane. The reason I brought that up because you said humor, and that's always been a thing for me, is that I would talk to friends who are stand-up comics and say, I don't think I'm funny, and they're like, but you have humor.
Yeah. But do you feel you're calculative? Like in terms of, I mean, let's say this podcast, right? Do you consciously keep this rhythm that we have,
Yeah.
right? Because I've seen you have a very terao that is there in
Which I've been told by YouTube comments that is too slow, but
No, I think it's
beyond that,
great,
yeah.
But is it consciously measured to keep a certain pace of this podcast? It's almost like signature? Or, is it...
So when I talk normally,
Yeah.
I talk much faster.
Correct. Okay.
But this was almost course correction because I grew up as a person who mumbled. So when I would talk, because I'm thinking faster than I'm talking, I would tend to talk faster. So people wouldn't understand what I said. So my normal pace is like I talk like this. That would
This
come
is
out.
like meditative for you.
So this became, so when I first got the chance to do a podcast in 2018, I was like, I don't think people will understand me. And so I would sit in front of a mic at home, with a pencil on my lips,
Are you serious?
and just talk to the mic. And because when you put a pencil on your lips, you can't talk fast because you're holding yourself back. And I would do that.
Nice.
And I always found that when you kind of bring the pace of a conversation down,
Yeah.
it feels calmer. And you're also feeling more comfortable. Because somebody putting pace into it somehow feels like
Yeah.
you're pushing. This is like, it's
Because we're always, especially us, we're so trained to run for the headline.
yeah. Yeah.
The punch.
Yeah. Where's the clickbait is the standard scenario. And
Yeah.
yes, so to answer your question, I look at the pace and I ask it that, and now it's natural because I've been doing it for like 5 odd years, but the questions are never planned. I'll have scribbles and I'll have notes,
Fair enough.
and for me it's more about reacting to what someone said.
Yeah.
Because I think there are 2 times in the last 5 years when I've actually written down questions, and those would arguably be some of my worst episodes because I just felt constrained by them.
But do your audience members know you watch Simpsons on that pad?
Yes, I do watch Simpsons on that, man. Yeah, that's all I'm doing right
During the
now. During
podcast.
Yeah, that is literally what I'm doing right now. I actually have a final question to ask you. During this entire journey that you've been on,
Yeah.
was there ever
I've ripped my cuticles. Oh, sorry.
Ah.
In life.
in life? Is there a single piece of advice you've gotten that has stuck with you?
I can't remember who said this. Someone said this to me. And it's a known fact. It's nothing new, but it just got stuck. That you are what you hide. Essentially, and that has been one. And the second is, I don't know. It's not advices. It's not words. It's just feelings that I have that have been stuck. Moments that yeah. Conversations, entire conversations. And like I said, right, like this is more meaningful to me than the one line that sums it up. So I remember entire conversations I've had with people close to me. Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this. This has been a fascinating conversation. I hope it was fun for you as well.
It was
Just
very
kind of
insightful.
Go into multiple tracks and go with the beat and the breaths.
Yeah.
That's going to stick with me now. And,
Yeah, man, you should check it out. You should really, it's
I'm like
everything.
fascinated. I'm going to do a lot of reading up today on this. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you
and
for
taking
having
pause.
me. Super.